Hey guys, what's going on? It's Voltone Felix, and today I'm going to be breaking down my track Lightyears with Stuart Rowe with you. This track is a drum bass track, and it's out on Nerd Nation, which is Pegboard Nerds label. If you want to listen to the track in full, then just go to my Spotify, Voltone, or I'll link it also in the description. So in this video I'll be going through each of the sections, kind of showing you how I kind of constructed each section. I won't be diving too much into the sound design, just because, in the interests of time. I'll make some other videos on sound design. This is more just going through the arrangement and different layers, and maybe offering some tips on how to achieve kind of the same thing in your productions. If you find the video helpful, then be sure to leave a like, and without further ado, let's jump in. So the intro section, the bulk of the sound in the intro section is coming from this retuned pad. If I take all the effects off of this, I believe this is a sample that I got out of a sample pack somewhere. It sounds like this. And with all the effects, it kind of we achieve something a bit different. So first effect I'm putting on here is the vocoder. That's adding a bit of OTT and also a bunch of vocoders. This is a kind of rack that Nasco's made. You can get it on his Patreon. Straight after that is the N Power rack, which is his saturation. So it's got a bunch of OTT saturation in it. And it's also got a handy dandy EQ at the end there. So that's on there, but the majority of the sound is coming from this plugin Retune, which is basically retuning the track to, or retuning this audio to the key of the track. So without it, sounds like that, and then with it, you can see immediately we get like something that's in the key of the track, and it retunes all the harmonics, which is great. I'm not actually using the shimmer on this. I've got a auto filter in the intro to kind of push it back into the background, and then an EQ, which is just taking up some of the harsh high end and cutting off the lows again. So that's the first layer. This layer is just the Rich Reese preset by Nasco. Not too much going on there. I've got an EQ on it, which I think I'm just pushing a little bit of that air on top. Then here we have strings. This is using Contacts, session strings, I believe. Just boot this up. Might take a second to open. Yep, just the session strings on Contact Pro 2, and not too much. I think I'm just using the default preset on here as well, with a bit of OTT on it, as well as some shimmer and auto filter. So it's just giving us some nice rich strings. Most of that's coming from the OTT, and then a bit of shimmer, which drenches in reverb. We've got a piano here, playing the same chords. This is Imagiro's, I think that's how you pronounce it, Imagiro, sorry if I'm getting that wrong. His piano that he's made, it's a really great soft piano. And when you drive it with some OTT or compression and shimmer, sounds like this. Very hard hitting, which layers quite nicely with the strings. And in the background, we've got more atmosphere stuff going on. This is just an Ace Aura loop with some auto filter, crystallizer to kind of give it that bubbly texture, and shimmer again. Another pad here, which is just a vocal sample off Splice. And down here we have our effects. There's a Barely Alive impact, Silent impact, this Keep Forest impact I've also got, which is just a nice sort of pluck. more impacts and sweeps, so just your standard stuff you'd expect. So all of that together gives us the entire stack. Oh, and we've also got some hi-hats here at the beginning. Pretty simple, just hi-hat samples. Not too much going on there, a bit of reverb. Not even actually doing anything. There was some auto pan on it, but I took it off. And all of that together gives us the intro. There is actually something going on in the intro with the vocal here. So from Stuart's vocals, which he sent over, I took a chop out of the vocal where he's just saying Lightyears. I think it's from the actual the chorus, and there's a bunch of stuff on this, but mainly it's just Little Altar Boy, which is pushing the formant of the vocal down. Delay, which is giving us that ping pong delay effect. Bit of EQ that's harshly high cutting it and also low cutting it and boosting the high end. Some chorus to kind of give it some spread, and then shimmer. And right at the end of the chain, we've got auto filter, which is filtering it up over the course of the intro. And then we get to the verse / breakdown.
I can hear the sound of the ocean.
So we'll jump into the vocals straight away on this one because this is pretty much the same throughout the entire track, so I'll cover it here. So Stuart sent me 2 stems here. He sent me this stem.
I can hear the sound of the ocean.
And completely dry, it sounds like this.
I can hear the sound of the ocean.
Which is pretty good. Stuart uses, I believe, multipass on his vocals by kilohertz, and kind of does his own processing, so I didn't really have to do too much in terms of processing on my end. I've just got some really basic EQ that's cutting the lows and slightly compressing the low mids where you get those resonant frequencies, and again I'm boosting the high end to get some more clarity. I use Pro C2 here with the upfront preset, and I tend to just mess around with the threshold and the wet until I get something that I want. Decapitator, this adds a little tiny bit of distortion. If I disable the effects kind of after this and put this on off, sorry.
I can hear the sound of the ocean.
You can hear it's just very slightly adding some distortion on the top end, some nice crunch to the sound. I'm then using this Waves plugin, delay plugin, which is just adding the ping pong delay.
I can hear the sound of the...
No particular reason I use this one, I just like the way it sounds. You can also achieve the same thing with the Ableton one. And then right at the end we've got Valhalla Vintage Verb, adding some reverb.
I can hear the sound.
So there's that. I then layered it with exactly the same stem, but right at the beginning of the chain I've pitched it up by 12 semitones and turned the formant down a little bit, which gives us a sort of high squeaky layer. Same kind of processing with everything, and that kind of just adds a nice doubling to it.
I can hear the sound of the ocean.
And then the other stem that Stuart gave me was this vocoder layer. I believe he uses Ovox to do his vocoding. Or it might have just been the Ableton vocoder, I'm not 100% certain. This stem I didn't have to do too much to. It's just got some EQ boosting some of the frequencies in the vocoder that I wanted to stick out more. A bit of a high cut and a bit of a low cut, just to take off and make it sit in the mix a bit more. An ensemble on 16 voices, which is just spreading it out. So if I play this thing completely dry, you can kind of hear that there's some artifacts here, and here where the vocoder is kind of cutting off. So the ensemble and also the shimmer is kind of my way of eliminating that. So drenching it with a load of reverb using shimmer helps kind of mask those little like glitches that are in there. When the vocals sing on top of it, you can't really notice them at all anymore. So they're still there, but they're kind of a lot less harsh now that we have reverb on it. So with all of those stems put together, it sounds like this.
I can hear the sound of the ocean, a vision in the sky.
Yeah, really nice. So didn't have to do too much on the vocals, and those kind of just sit there. Exactly the same processing happening in the second drop there. There's a little bit going on in the second drop, which I'll go into. This intro, sort of Million Light Years, I'm using this quite a few times throughout this track. So you can hear here, I've got kind of the similar kind of thing. But in here, I'm pitching it up by 12 semitones, so that's how you get the... the high-pitched voice that leads into the drop. But focusing back on the verse here, there's not a huge amount going on. It's, again, just the sort of pad that we've had from the intro and the respace. This lead, which features in the drop mainly, which is just the self-destruct preset by Pegboard Nerds. With a bunch of saturation on it, some EQ, and a low-pass filter that's filtering it up towards the drop. These stems, again, are from the drop. I'm just kind of introducing them early to help filter into the drop and give people a taste of what's coming. This is a vocal chop that kind of is prevalent throughout the drop. Again, you can't really hear it here because it's low pass, but you can see it slowly coming up. Yeah, you only begin to really hear it here. And this is the kind of the first stem that I programmed, and then this lead is just following the notes that this lead is doing. Again, with this vocal, if I solo this stem and play it from the drop, you'll notice if I play it without retune, it's kind of all over the place. So adding retune helps. Literally takes all of those frequencies and snaps them in line with whatever kind of mapping I've put in here. And this is the mapping that I chose, which makes it sound really, really nice. And then I've got this layer, which is, I believe, the main bass. Yeah, so this is the main bass. This is a bass I constructed inside Vital. Looks a bit like this. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into the sound design, but it's basically a silver wave with a wavetable over the top and some... it's actually got no effects on the actual patch itself. Really basic preset, and then it's running into some rift, formant shapes, which is giving it that kind of modern talking effect. The dimension rectifier, which kind of gives it some spread. M vocoder disperser to kind of give it that weird rubberiness that you get from disperser. Saturation rack, which is doing some EQ on the end there, and again we've got this kind of filtering and washout effect on it, and right at the end we've got some EQ, really basic stuff, and that's filtering up, so you can kind of hear that doing its thing. Yeah, not a whole lot else going on in the breakdown in the intro. Breakdown in the build-up. There's some random like sweeps and effects going on. Little like loop going on there. Bunch of risers. Don't think there's any other real interesting stems. I think this is just noise. It's like a pluck that you can barely hear. It's turned down by 17 dB. So yeah, most of this section is kind of just providing background for the vocals, which are the main focal point. And then obviously we build up towards the drop just using your standard kind of kick build up pattern. Yep. And so now we can move on to the drop where everything's kind of opened up. The drums are pretty simple, just using this kick snare loop. It sounds like this. And on top we've got the hi-hats. These are the same hi-hats as there are in the intro. And then in the second half of kind of each phrase here, we've got a kind of open hat going. And that's literally all there is to the drums. It's the same in the second drop as well. Now moving down to kind of the basses. So we've got that bass that I was talking about earlier, the vital bass. And that's then layered with my sub, which is, I've got a bunch of subs that I use here, Nasco's, Joby's, and Odd Profits. Joby's one is kind of like he did a live stream and I just copied his what he was doing for his. So it's basically just a sine wave with a tiny bit of pitch modulation on it. And then some hiss, which adds basically just white noise, loads of saturation. We're cutting out some of the low mids here with the muddiness that the saturation introduces, and then we're just boosting. Actually, we're not even boosting; we're just taking down the highs there, and basically nothing else. I think this is just not doing anything. So this sub and the bass adds together to give us the main chunk of the drop. So that was kind of where I started with that stem and the drop, with the drums and then this bass sound. And then I added this vocal chop over the top. And then it was just a matter of adding more layers in. So I've got this kind of retuned drum thing which adds quite a lot into the drop. Just sounds like this, which again is just vocode, power rack, and retune using the mapping. You'll kind of see this kind of combo of all three plugins used quite a bit. So there's that one, and then we've got another vocal chop, I believe. Again, using those three plugins. Bit of reverb and EQ. I believe it switches here. And literally to create that variation, all I'm doing is just pitching these samples up. So you can see this one's pitched up by 5 semitones. Now, that 5 is basically just, with all of these effects and the retune on the actual stem, I can basically freely pitch these around and it will keep it in key. So I've just selected which one sounds nice. And you can see then just chopping around and making, edits as I see fit as I'm building the drop. And I believe we've also got some layers of samples in here. Yeah, so this is again using our M vocoder, M power rack, and retune, and a bit of filtering. I think if we take all of these stems off, all these plugins off, you'll be able to hear what the actual stem sounds like. So it's just a random kind of like moogie kind of synth that's like in completely the wrong key. And then with all of these plugins on, it sounds like this. And then that is kind of layered with this retune pad up here, which is again just from the intro, just a chop from the intro. Some other stems that are going on with the bass line here. We've got this one, which is literally just a saw wave. That's all it is, with a kind of a pluck going on the filter there, and rift, which I don't know if it's actually doing anything. No, it's literally just the default preset. My fat rack, which is a bunch of just basically 2 ATTs and some saturation, and quite harsh, just cutting off the lows. And that's just providing a layer to the main bass there. And then we've got another one doing something down here. yeah, so this one is, again, I believe just a saw wave with a filter that's got the resonance cranked super high, which gives it that kind of peakiness. And yeah, boosting some of the low mids here. So this one is providing us most of our kind of low mid range to the bass, something I felt like the drop was just kind of missing, so like without it. And then with the stem. Very minuscule difference, but it's in there. Again, we've got our lead going away here. And that's just kind of going all the way through the drop. There's another vocal chop here, which is just a tiny, tiny little vocal sample with some shimmer on it. There's pretty much nothing going on underneath here apart from just your average like effects, like impacts and sweeps and stuff. There's one more thing I think we can go into here, which is this one. So in the second half of the drop, we've got this Heavenly Saw. And this, again, it's just a Pegboard Dance preset. Got my fat rack on it and some EQ. So that's just helping us add a bit of melody and variation in the second half of the drop. And pretty much nothing else going on here. I'm using that vocal again, the kind of formant shifted one. And then that just gives us the whole drop, basically. We're bringing in the intro vocals there again, the sort of ethereal, those ones. Yeah, so that's pretty much all there is to the drop. So now moving on to the bridge section. This is using the same drums as the drop. It's using the bass from the drop, but I believe we're basically low passing it here. We're not low passing it; it's just the main bass, full swing. We've taken out a few of the stems you can see here, so like the vocal chops and everything, and these kind of mid basses here. And I've replaced it with this sort of house organ sample. Which is just super simple organ that I've just chopped up and pitched about. OTT, delay, shimmer. And we've got this sort of water sample, which I really like. Kind of vocal sample going on. And I believe this is just the Rich Reese preset, which we've kind of already gone into. Some vocal chops and the vocals again. And kind of some exhausts and stuff like that. You'll notice that I basically put these everywhere in the track. These are really important to kind of signpost where different things are happening, kind of let the audience know that something's about to happen. And then here we are in the breakdown, which is basically just the intro, pretty much exactly the same as the intro. The only difference is that we have this piano sample. Instead of playing the same chords as the strings, it's playing a sort of arpeggio. And this is literally all it's playing for the entire breakdown and the verse. The strings are playing exactly the same thing. And the verse here is pretty much exactly the same. The only difference is that we have in the vocals is we've got an extra layer in here, which is just a sort of harmony that Stuart sung. And then he's layered that up here. And that's pretty much exactly the same. The final drop is again the same as the first drop. The only difference is that I've kind of changed this vital preset, so instead of it plucking on eighth notes, it's now plucking on quarter notes, and that's the same for this little plucky thing here and this thing here, so you can hear. So instead of the ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, it's now ba-da-da-da-da-da. So it's quarter notes as opposed to eighth notes. You'll notice that in the first hit of the drop, we've kind of got like this sort of background effect. And that is being achieved by this plugin called One-Off Driver. It's a plugin by Waves, and it kind of just adds distortion and EQ to kind of make things sound like they're coming out of radio. So you can see it's just turning up and just turns off there. So really straightforward and simple. The drop is exactly the same pretty much from that point onwards. The post drop is exactly the same, and then the outro, I believe. Yeah, so the outro is just a low note on the strings. The piano arpeggio we've been talking about, and some extra kind of effects and stuff like that. And that's pretty much it for the whole track. If you've got any questions on any sound in particular or why I've done something in a certain way, then feel free to let me know. The master on this is pretty simple. This is using kind of my old mastering chain. I use something a bit more up to date, or like that processes it in slightly better way. I use a pre-master now, but basically this has got ozone imager on it that's making the lows, everything below 140 hertz, mono, and it's actually boosting the stereo in the top end, everything above 10k, so you get super wide hats. Pro L, which is just stopping everything from going above 0, basically. It's not doing any kind of crazy limiting. G clip, which again is just clipping everything. And span, which is just referencing millimeters, which obviously I'm not actually using at the moment. And then I have this rack at the end, which is my show rack, which just basically drenches the entire track in reverb and kind of just to give me an idea of what it might sound like in a club. So you got the back of the club feeling there. And that's why that's there. But yeah, that's pretty much the track. If you've got any questions about any of the sections, please let me know. And if you've enjoyed this breakdown video, then again, please leave a like on the video, and I'll do this kind of on some of my other tracks. And if you want any track in particular for me to do a breakdown on, leave a comment below, and I'll get back to you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.